dari UiTM dan juga dialu-alukan penyertaan daripada IPT yang lain. Baiklah, tanpa membuang lebih masa, dipersilakan Profesor Dr. Kalavathy Ramasamy untuk menyampaikan perkongsian yang bertajuk Let's Rise and Publish Review Article During This Trying Time. Dipersilakan.
Thank you, Tamizi, and a very good afternoon, professors, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you are doing well. Although we are distanced, one thing for sure, it's great to know that we are still connected. So, and first of all, I would like to thank Professor Rugaya from the Research and Innovation Division, UCS, for this invitation. So, basically what I'll be doing is I will be sharing our experience, over the years on writing review articles. And my goal, if you ask me for this afternoon, is basically to ensure that, you benefit out of the presentation. So I'm going to share with you my screen. Okay, can you all see? Tamizi, can I just check if you can see the slides?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, that's great. We shall begin then. Thank you so much. So, well, what I thought was, when I was sort of getting the title, I thought that it's best that, we are all in this long haul, this storm, I would say, and I thought that we should be able to rise above the storm, okay? So my title today is Let's Rise and Publish Review Articles During This Trying Time. And what I'm sharing today is really work from not only me, but my whole team. So basically what I'll be doing this afternoon is to take you through 2 minutes on what does it take to write review articles, because I think it's very important. It's just a 2 minute, it's scene setting on why, okay? And why write review articles, types of review articles. Now 2 and 3 is basically just to give you an idea. It will take about maybe 5 to 10 minutes before we really get into 4, 5, 6. Now 4, 5, 6 are the most important parts of writing review articles. But what I'm going to do today is a bit different. So I am going to sort of introduce what are the different types of review articles, and I like the way systematic review is done. So I'm going to sort of adopt some of the methods or the best practices used in systematic review to ensure that we can improve the quality of a narrative review. So my focus is on a narrative review, but basically I think our experience would say that some of the methods used in systematic review can be used to improve the quality of a narrative review. And then I'll go on to the article structure and crafting the text. How do we do it? How to write the proposal to the editor if the review is not an invited or a solicited one. So basically, sometimes even when they're not solicited, we can actually write to the editor. So I'll just show you the tips. Then where to submit and the review and editorial process itself. I know that when I start talking, I will tend to talk faster. So just a housekeeping note: if you find me talking a bit too fast, please just unmute your mic and say go slow, and I'll be with you. Okay, let's start. Now, what does it take to write review articles? A lot of you who would have joined me in writing research articles or original articles, right? You would have realized, you would have seen this slide, and I always say it's now, okay? Tiada esok bagimu. And I always say writers write and don't enjoy it, so just do it. Okay, so this is before the MCO, but really, I mean, from our experience, what I would say now, in our situation now, this long haul, I would say what's very important is motivation. Okay, motivation is important to get the momentum going. So something that my team and I, we don't miss every week is to ensure that our research meetings with our postgraduate students, undergraduate students are on. And this is so important because at a time like this, trust me, I mean, it's important for us to have a cheerful heart. Okay, you can see all that emojis with a smiley face. So this is important. Okay, and we've got a choice to be happy. So ensure that emotionally, yeah, we are stable. Okay, apart from that, you know, whether it's a review article or it's basically any type of research, I would suggest do not walk alone. Okay, you need your support system. You need a team. Okay? This is really, really from our experience, because there are subject experts. There are team who can actually help you with the meta-analysis or, you know, statistics. And of course, you've got people, you know, who lead the whole team and of course to write the final text. I'll go on to number 2. Okay, so this is why write review articles. Okay, but before that, let's just take a step back because I understand that we also have students, just to ensure that you know, we know what are the different types of manuscripts. I mean, our lecturers will of course know, but just bear with me. Now, full articles are basically primary data. Okay, so data that you go and do in your lab, or, you know, when you do a questionnaire. Basically, it's primary data. Okay, and it's completed pieces of research. It's often called full articles or original articles. But review papers are a bit different. Okay, they are secondary data. It's a comprehensive summary of what people have done, but of course in recent developments. Okay, so that's the difference. Full article is primary data. Review papers or review articles are secondary data, but it's comprehensive. Okay, now it's often invited, but trust me, I mean, our experience tells me that, you know, even if you're not invited, you can just write a letter to the editor, and I'll share with you the tip in a bit. So what is a review article? It is just not a summary. Of course, it's a summary, but it's just not a summary. Okay, so it really involves synthesis of current understanding. It shows the gaps and, of course, the future directions. So I'll share with you quite a bit on this. And back to the question on why write review articles actually. Now, for practical reasons, it's MCO. We can't go to the lab. We can't do our survey, our data. So it will be good to actually write reviews, and this would be the best time. And on average, actually, reviews are cited more than research articles. If you look at this, is on average. Yeah? And for good reasons, share with you our experience. It provides an insight that cannot be obtained from individual research articles. Now I'll show you why. If you look at this, this was a recent paper that we published as a review. You can see that you know, different studies. This is a study where we looked at proteomics, okay, protein markers as an approach for the discovery of blood-based biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. So we wanted to see whether there's a pattern in the protein markers or not for Alzheimer's disease. So you can see that people from different countries, different cohorts have looked at it. Can you see that, you know, you have different countries, you have different blood fractions, you have different platforms. So, you know, the results were rather very, very inconsistent. So what we thought was it would be nice to actually do a review and see whether there's a standard pattern, you know, so that we can actually eventually validate these markers in a different cohort. So, so the advantage of a review article is it just doesn't give you the insight from one individual research article, but you can see a pattern. Okay, so that will be really good. Apart from that, you can also actually identify the gaps for future studies, okay? And I'll share that with you. Now, this is another paper that we published as a research team in 2016. And, you know, the interesting part in this paper is that we actually were going to run a clinical trial, okay? So what we did was, instead of just running the clinical trial like how other people did, we looked at the effect of probiotics, the intervention of probiotics on diabetic subjects. So we didn't want to make the same mistakes what the previous authors did, because once again, in this clinical trial, the previous studies showed inconsistent results. So I'm sure there are limitations, and what we were able to identify were actually the limitations from previous clinical trials. So before we did the clinical trial, actually, we were able to identify these gaps. So it's quite useful, okay? Okay, and done. And now we are very quickly on types of review articles. Now, there are various kinds of review articles, okay? But I've just put the main four that we always see. So there is systematic review, there is meta-analysis, and there is narrative review, okay? Narrative review is what I am going to share with you today. Now, a perspective is very different, okay? Perspective is usually invited. I've never been invited for a perspective. Now, perspective are usually written, editors will sort for big names, people who have really, who have done very well. So perspective is like a hypothesis. These people who write perspective, these authors have really got authority in that field, and they sort of tell what's the future like. Okay, so that's a perspective. Now, what we are going to look at today is mainly narrative review, but a bit on systematic review and meta-analysis, like I told you, because I'm adopting some of the good practices in systematic review into a narrative review. Okay, so if you look at a narrative review, so basically it's like your literature review. Okay, so for postgraduate students who have joined us this afternoon, just bear with me because this may be useful for you, because I'll show you step by step and guide you, okay, on how to do it. So I've got a master's student who actually basically lifted up her literature review as a review paper. So if you're talking about a narrative review, it's definitely like a literature review. Okay, so a narrative review or a literature review is very broad. Now, if I am a postgraduate student or an undergraduate student, now I am going to start my thesis, okay? I'm going to start my project. Now, I will be quite blur, okay? We all went through that. So, what do we do? Now, the first thing that you should do is actually read a narrative review, or basically, a narrative review. Now, why? Because a narrative review, if you look at it, it is broader. Can you see that? A narrative review will give you an idea of what the area is. Okay, it'll give you an idea. So a narrative review is a comprehensive, critical, and objective analysis of the current knowledge of the topic. So if you are new in that area, I would suggest look or read a narrative review. Now, a systematic review, you can see, is a bit more focused. Now, the very word systematic tells you that it's done very systematically, okay? From the method onwards, it's very transparent. There's a standard method that you follow. And if you look at the research questions, it's not broad, it's very specific. So that's the difference between a narrative review and a systematic review. So a narrative review is broad, okay? It gives you an idea of what's happening in that area. While a systematic review is very focused, it tells you what the research question and the whole process is very systematic, okay? So meta-analysis, very often when we do a systematic review, if there's enough data, if there's more than two groups of data, we can actually analyze, and that becomes meta-analysis. Now, very often, right, if you talk about literature review or narrative review, you don't have very specific guidelines. But for a systematic review, you really have very specific guidelines. Now, very quickly, right, I would just like to show you what is the structure of a systematic review, or I would say generally a research article, a complete original full paper, okay? The structure, if you look at this red box, right? I mean, I'm not going to go through this, okay, because of course you start off with the title, authors, abstract, keywords, and you've got your main text, and if you have followed me through my research articles, you will know that I always follow this INRAD, that is intro, methods, results, and discussion. So this is your normal structure, kan, that you always see, right? So I can't see your face, I don't know whether you understand, but I'll go on, okay? So that's the structure of basically a systematic review. So in systematic review, meta-analysis, you have that method, okay? But if you look at a narrative review, now everything else is the same, but when you talk about the main text, okay, you don't actually follow INRAD. You don't have the method section. I understand that some of the recent authors try to include methods in a narrative review, but personally, for me, I would think that it's just like, disturbing the flow of that. So I wouldn't want a method section for a narrative review, because a narrative review is going to give you a broad idea, okay? So you can see that in a narrative review, you still have your introduction, you still have your conclusion. Now, but you really don't have your method. And results and discussion are actually embedded inside the main sections. I really hope you can get this, but I'll go in depth later, okay? So if you look at a narrative review, you have got the introduction, you have got the conclusion, but if you look, you have got no method, okay? And the results and discussion, like I said earlier, it will be embedded in the main sections. And I'll go through this red box thoroughly because that's the objective of my presentation today. Okay, very quickly, yeah. What are the similarities and differences between a systematic review and a narrative review? Just very quickly so that you get this overview and we'll move on. Now, like I said to you, research question, it's very focused for a systematic review. A narrative review gives you an overview. Now, if you look at the protocol, inclusion criteria, search strategy, or even how to evaluate articles, the results, now it's all very systematic in the systematic review. Can you see? But for a narrative review, I told you earlier, there are no standard guidelines. So what I'm going to share with you are the steps that we practice, okay? There's no really clear guidelines, but it's nice to actually adopt from your systematic review, a bit, okay, which will be useful for your narrative review. Of course, the background and the conclusion will be the same for both. Now, don't worry about this slide. I just want to tell you that this is what happens in a systematic review. Okay, it's very standard. It's called Prisma. It's a preferred reporting item. So it's really very standard where you really have to register protocol and things like that. So a systematic review is very clear, okay, of how to conduct it. But I thought that it would be nice to actually adopt some of this, okay? So if you are like this, you know, as a student, you are like this, you're feeling like this now on how to write a narrative review. I hope that, you know, you, after this talk, you know, you won't be like this anymore. So join me in part 4, that is steps to write the narrative review. Now this part 4, I will take a bit of time because I think it's very important. So I hope that you've got an idea of what is a systematic review and what is a narrative review. A narrative review, in simple, it's literature review. So basically, it's like how do you actually merge a bit of that. So now these are the 6 steps. Okay, don't panic. Okay, just go one by one, and you'll be able to do it together. So there are 6 steps that we have put in. So like I told you, I've merged some of the methods from the systematic review to improve the quality of a narrative review. Now the first question is, of course, number 1, what is your research question? Okay, so or basically your objective of the study. And the second part is a search. So how do you do it? And the third step is assess. Okay, assess assess all the journals that you have found. So whether you want to include or you don't want to include that journal articles. Fourth step is extract. Now this is very important. I'll give you some tips on how do you actually extract that information. Now you have got all your journal articles, because you know, you have done a good search, you have got all the journal, maybe it can be 1,000 plus, and you know, out of that you found that 75 or 80 are good. Now how do you extract that information from these 80 journal articles? Okay, that's extract. And then you analyze. I'll share with you again with some examples. And finally, it's the reporting. So be with me for these 6 steps, okay? So the first part is to formulate your research questions, basically, you know, to get into your objectives. So very often this is your first step. This is very important, and it must be clear and well defined. So now, if you want to do a review, the first step, what are you going to do is, okay, you know roughly I'm going to work on this, but check your existing reviews, whether people have published in that area or not. Imagine if you know, if somebody has published, for example, something that you want to publish in January early this year, and are you also going to repeat what they do? You don't want to duplicate their work. Okay, so the first thing that you do is check what is the most recent review paper that people have done in that area. Okay, and identify the gap. If you think that there are limitations to that review paper, then you move on. Okay, so the first thing that you must do is find existing reviews. Okay, and then see whether to make sure that you're not duplicating it. Now, I'm going to share with you a bit of tip here. Now, it's good if you can consider using a framework, okay? Because this framework, sometimes this framework may not be, like if you're from social science, I'll show you because it's difficult to explain. And because this framework is important, because once you have sort of classified, you can put in your keywords, okay? And it's, this is just a framework. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is this: once you have got your framework, your keywords can be done very systematically. So this is a framework that I was talking about for research questions. These are standard frameworks, okay? You can get it anywhere for your area. For example, for medical, what we often use is PICO, okay, which I'll share with you in a bit. And if you're looking at management or business admin or library, management, so there are frameworks like CMO, HIP that you can look at, okay? So I'm sure that, I can share with you these slides, and so you can get this framework, okay? So just look at your area. So there are different areas, okay? So there are different areas, look for yours. And this will just give you sort of, it just becomes more systematic so that it's easy for you actually. Okay, now sometimes you may not be able to actually use this framework, okay? In this case, you can. This case, we are using the PICO framework. So basically, if you go back, PICO will be somewhere down here. I actually cut it, okay? But basically, it's somewhere here. And so if you can use that framework, it's good. But I'll also show you an example when you cannot use this framework. So what do you do? Now, since we can use this framework, so basically PICO is population or problem intervention, I, C for comparison, and O for outcome. Now, we have to be quite flexible, okay, when we do this. So I would say that our question, because we were looking at, like I told you earlier, we wanted to see the efficacy of, probiotics, which we work on type 2 diabetic, on type 2 DM subjects, okay? So basically, our population is type 2 DM subjects, okay? And our intervention is probiotics. Our comparison in this case is the placebo, but if you don't have anything, it's okay. Okay, that's why, like I told you, be creative. And finally, the outcome. Of course, you want to know whether it's effective or not, right? So there is outcome, but this is a very standard framework, so you can get it PICO. So the question is, well, from here, just from this PICO, you can get it as, is probiotics effective in the management of type 2 DM? Now, what is more important than the framework is actually, I want to tell you that if you have got classification, you actually can put nicely, okay, your keywords like, you can, because sometimes when you search, it's type 2 DM, it can be diabetes, so you want all your you want all the journals, okay, because you don't want to miss anything. Now, what is very important in a review article is your keywords, because if you've got the wrong keywords, trust me, you are going to miss some articles. So for my team and I, even for keywords, to be honest with you, we actually sit down as a team. We discuss, even our undergraduate students, okay, we make sure, this is the first thing that we do. We ask them to list down, okay, what are the keywords. And what is interesting is that if you put it in this format, in this framework, you actually, it's more systematic, right? And you can see for probiotics example, okay, under this classification of framework. Now, if you only search for probiotics, you are going to miss a lot of articles, okay? So under probiotics, put all the different keywords that you can and discuss as a team, okay? Even for researchers, for us, okay, we still discuss with our team members, okay? We don't do it alone. And if you got nothing on comparison, don't worry about it. Now you go to outcome. Of course, it's the management of type 2 DM, right? That is in our research question. So under management of type 2 DM, we want to look at all these parameters. So can you see that it's much more systematic, although we are doing a narrative review, but when you do it this way, it really saves time, okay? So basically, I'm trying to guide you towards getting to the keywords in a systematic manner. So basically, keywords are important because they are labels of your manuscript, okay? And be aware that, of the different spelling conventions. I mean, sometimes UK, sometimes US, so you have to have all, whether it's UK, US, wherever, okay, together. And sometimes, like for example, cancer. If you only put cancer, you are going to miss out a lot of articles. So ensure that you have cancer, neoplasm, malignant tumor. So just like that, you see, I told you, have all these under population. Example, this is just an example. Now, what if I just can't get that classification? You know, somehow my study doesn't get into that framework that I showed you just now. So you can still have your main concepts here. Okay, population is still there, but this study, we wanted to look again. Now, we wanted to write the review simply because different cohorts, different studies in different parts of the world showed different results, okay? So what we wanted to do is see whether there's a trend, okay? And so if we do a review, then we will be able to see, okay, whether, you know, there's certain parameters or certain biomarkers that are consistent, you know, in different countries, even when they use different platforms. So this was the objective. So basically, I couldn't use PICO because PICO was intervention, remember? Like, you know, what drugs or what supplements are you going to use? And I can't use PICO in this framework. So what I did was I still classified them so that you can have the population, it's Alzheimer's disease. And for the sample type, right? Sample type, you look at it, it's blood. Okay, because now this is like a diagnostic kind of work, okay, a biomarker work. So I can't use PICO, I put sample type. I put what are the targets, what are the tools, okay, because actually you can get your concepts either from your questions, your objectives, but what I'm trying to tell you here is please do develop this table, okay. I know that it's very often done for a systematic review, but it's good if you can do it for a narrative review. My point here is that you will not miss your keywords, okay. For example, these are just examples, okay. So if you look at population, now we put Alzheimer, search, okay. You can put Alzheimer's disease, and then AD. So these are the keywords. If only you put your keyword as blood, you are going to miss, you know, when people work on plasma, people work on serum, blood-based. So at least when you discuss with your team, you know, they'll be able to give you some ideas, okay? So, or, you know, if you're looking at proteomics, it can be proteome. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is try to classify them so that you don't miss any keywords. Okay, so the first step, like I told you, was to formulate your research question, and you can use a framework. And if you don't have a framework, it's okay, classify yourself. What is important in your first step is basically you want to get to the right keywords. Okay, that's the objective. You want whatever your keywords are there. And what's the objective of having all the various kinds of keywords is so that you don't miss any journal. Okay, that's the main objective of a review article. Can you imagine if you write a review article and you miss one important reference just because that was on serum while you type blood? Okay, so something like that. Basically, we have that table so that it's more systematic, okay, although it's a narrative review. So I hope that we are clear with the first step. I got another half an hour and I should be able to finish. So now my part B, second step. So once you've done that, you are going to search because now you've got your keywords, right? So search and research the literature. Now, there are many online databases, okay? And of course, it's going to be different for your research area. So just go Google I'm sure you are very familiar with the various databases. And for students, just discuss with your supervisors. I'm sure they'll be able to help you. Okay, now, and I'll show you a bit, okay? So now you have to get to the studies, okay? Now you have imagined that you already have keyed in your keywords and you've done the search. You've got so many papers like this, 1,000 something, okay? So this was done by my student. She found 330 in PubMed, 410 in Embase, Web of Science 246, Science Direct 311, Springer 354. Now that's going to be what? It's 1,000 something. So that's a lot, okay? So what do you do at this stage? When you see 1,000 something, it's going to be overwhelming. But this is when you actually do some screening. Okay, you don't read all 1,000 something, okay? That's not possible. So what you do is you do a screening. You have to screen all the 1,000 something for their title and their abstract. So when you look at the title and the abstract, somehow you will know whether it's in your field or not. Trust me, there'll be a lot that is duplicated in the various databases. So you can actually remove at this stage. There'll be many that you can remove, and many may not be in your area. Okay, so but at least we are sure that we have got everything in. So to remove is easier, right? Instead of not having what is important. So once you've got 1,000 something, do the screening. Screening, read your title and read your abstract. Okay, so sometimes it's so out of the topic, just leave it. You don't have to go to the full text. Okay, it's not possible for you to go through the full text for all. So if it's duplicating or if it's not in your area, then remove it. So out of this 1,000 something example, okay, this is just an example, you would know that 75 actually full text articles are related, or they are eligible. Now, for a systematic review, actually this is done very, you've got inclusion and exclusion criteria, but can you see that for narrative review, it's nice if you can, but it's just that I don't want to overwhelm you with but you have to have an idea of what are the studies that you can include and what are the studies that you cannot include. Okay, this you have to have. Okay, and okay, your next part. So I hope I'm clear, right, with step C, which is you have to look at all the articles. Basically, it's just screening. Okay, screening, and can you see that it's a bit more systematic here? Now, part 4 is how do you actually extract that data? Now we have got 75 articles with you, right? And are you just going to read and remember? I mean, I cannot, I cannot remember. So how are you going to actually do it? Now, as you read, remember your PICO. Okay, you had that classification just now that I showed you: patients, intervention, outcomes, and you can add more notes. Just be creative. Okay, so this is very crucial that students don't do it often if it's a narrative review. Just use a spreadsheet. You have got Excel, kan? We all know how to use Excel. So put in your authors, put in the publication year, and you can put in your classification, because that classification is just not, it's important for your keywords, and also it can be useful to extract information. So I hope you can understand that the first part of your framework is very important. This classification, even if you cannot classify, even if you don't have a standard framework, classify, okay, do something so that you can just group things together. It's just, making things more organized. So I would strongly suggest, please use an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and you can be creative. You want to put extra notes. You can do, but at least you know that all 75 are in your spreadsheet. So that's how you extract data, and because you cannot remember all the information. So what's good about that extracting? Can you imagine you've got this Excel here, and now actually, if you have done it well, one thing good in Excel is that you can also sort. So you can sort according to similarities, according to maybe serum, plasma. So you can do a lot of sorting here. And once all that is done, you can actually lift that whole Excel and make it into a table. And this table can actually be part of your review paper itself. Okay, for example, like for my student, it's table 1. Okay, so I think that in this way, it's very easy. You just get things organized. So you see, you have got your authors, you've got your country, so it's all based on the framework, and you can be creative and add more. Okay, and now at the 5th part. Okay, so this is, I would say, the most challenging part, because you have got all your data. Okay, you have put it in Excel, and now this data actually must speak to you. Okay, so what I mean by speak to you is that make sense of that data that you have. Okay, so this is where, like I told you, you can actually analyze, you can look at them, see whether there's similarities, whether there's differences, and very often what I would encourage my students to do is put it in figures, because now you have got new information, because you can see a trend. And what do you think, your perspective now? So in this part, actually, I'll actually show you with examples. So try to get it into a figure, because a picture paints 1,000 words, okay? So you have analyzed everything in Excel. So just speak to that Excel, okay? And yeah, I'll share with you on the gap later. So yeah, when you are analyzing step 5, right, you have to discuss. So you remember when I told you narrative review, your discussion will now come in here. So this is one of my favorite. I always look at John Cryan's team because they come up with very good figures from their review papers. Okay, so you can see that, you know, just by looking at the figures, I know exactly that he's talking about gut and brain. Okay, so this is the gut, this is the brain, but this, you know, all these involves a lot of analysis. Okay, so this is what this is not my paper. Okay, this is I'm a fan of John Cryan. So the last part is how do you do the reporting? Okay, so find the best journal to publish your work. So these are just the 6 steps, but I'll go in detail one by one. Okay, let's see the timing. Yeah. So now we're going to the contents. That's part 5 of my my presentation. So I hope that, you know, you were able to cope with the 6 steps. Okay, and now it's more on your article structure, right from the title. Okay, and how do you actually craft the text? So I would say a general structure is like your foundation, kan, of a building. And how we always do it is, like I told you earlier, an original research article, a systematic review, and a meta-analysis. It will always follow the IMRAT. Okay, so so IMRAT is very easy. And there are no issues because this is what we all have been doing, okay, for years. But when it comes to a narrative review, like I told you just now, the red box, I told you that the method is not there anymore, okay? And even if you want to put like method, some people like to do that. I mean, you can actually put it as appendix if you want, like how many journals you got, which are the databases, put it as appendix lah. I mean, personally, I mean, if it's a thesis, or you can put it as, I think I wouldn't like to put a method in a narrative review. I'll leave that for systematic review. Okay, so but having said that, now it's important that you have your Excel done, the keywords. So it's good if you can do like what my student has done. That means that each database identify what how many articles you have. So at least you have got a record. Okay. Because sometimes the editor may want it. Now, so going back to this red box, so all these are the same. So it's like title, authors, abstract, keywords. So it's the main text that differs. And like I told you just now, you have got the introduction, you have got the conclusion and future perspective. But what is important is here. Your main section 1, main section 2, 3, 4. So this is not, you don't have to follow whatever I say, right? This is just a sort of sharing session. Personally, I think what we are comfortable with is have about 4 to 6 main sections. Can you see? So between your introduction, conclusion, you have a few sections, kan? So what is comfortable would be 4 to 6 because you don't want to overwhelm the reader also, kan? Penat nanti baca. So it's nice to actually have like 4 to 6 sections, main sections, okay? And here I have just shown you 4. So 6 is still okay, but not more than that, basically. And under each section, it's nice to have subsections, okay? So your subsections can be 2 to 3. If you don't have, you only got 1 subsection, then that can go to main. Okay? But so under your main section, have a few subsections, and I would suggest 2 to 3. But please, this is really very much up to you. I mean, these are just ideas, okay? And so actually, you will realize that, hey, where are the results? Where are the discussions? So now your results and discussion are all part of the subsections, which I will share with you. Okay, I go back to the outline. So this outline is mainly for your, this outline is mainly for your main sections, okay? I'm talking about the main sections. And what is very important, friends, is that when you are writing a review article, now at the keyword juncture, ensure that you discuss with your team. Okay, that's very important. Now, a second part that you really want to discuss with your supervisors or with your, colleague would be your team, would be your main outlines, okay? So this is basically for your main outline. Start always, when you're talking about subsection 1, main section 1, start with a broader theme, okay? So that is actually related to the area, but it has not touched the question yet. So slowly work towards your research question. Can you see? So your main section 1 should be here. Work slowly towards your main section 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. So my point is, from a broader perspective, you slowly narrow down into your research question. And so I'm just sharing with you our experience with our second review paper. when I was doing this slide, I realized, ouch, we made very big mistakes here, which we didn't realize. So sometimes I think it's really experience matters. You can see that we've got the introduction, we have got the conclusion. Now this is my master students' work that we really, I mean, I'm not joking, I actually lifted the literature review into a paper, okay? So we made a mistake here, but never mind. Let's see whether you notice. So the red ones are my main sections, if you look. So these are the subsections. So if you can see, okay, what is very obvious is I have made a slight blunder. We have made a slight blunder here, but we didn't notice then, okay? So these are experiences, and it's okay as long as you don't do it again. It's not wrong, it's still accepted, but I would have thought that this would have been better, okay? But it's too late, it's published. So it's nice to have your main sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, can you see? And then you have your subsections like this. So this is what I mean. And okay, so when you are writing your main text, that the main part of your manuscript, what is important is it has to have exciting scientific message. It must flow in a logical manner, like I told you, from broad, to narrower, and ensure that we summarize whatever we do, because we don't want to write too much, okay? This is not a creative writing class. So now I'll go on from the title onwards. So since you have the idea of basically what are the main section and everything, so now I will take you through, I think I can finish this within 15 minutes. How do you write the thesis itself? Okay, now developing a title, friends, I believe that this is not so difficult, so I will not spend too much of time, but sometimes you can have questions like this. Okay, this is a paper that we just submitted, but sometimes even in your title you can have questions, okay? Now abstract, I also will not dwell too long, because I think the most important is the main section. Now abstract, you have a formula, okay? So I have told you in my research grant writing, or research article writing, I've always said that there's a formula to an abstract. You will never go wrong if you follow this formula. It's always a problem statement. What are the existing solutions, and what are the limitations to the existing solutions? Then you slowly go on to the hypothesis, which will lead you to your objectives. Then you've got the outcome. So this is the abstract. Actually, if you look at it, the abstract is quite similar to the introduction, but of course for an abstract, it's concise and there's a word limit, kan? So I will not dwell on this too long, because most of us know how to write this part. So an introduction is also the same like an abstract. Trust me, friends, I mean, you really can go through this formula, okay? It has not failed me thus far. And so an introduction is for you to convince your readers on the importance of your work. It should give you an overview of your review. Okay, so first thing, like I said earlier, describe the problem. I'll show you an example in a bit. And are there any existing solutions? And what are the main limitations? Okay, so I'll share with you on, after that you go on to what is the hypothesis. This will lead you to your research questions. Okay, so going back to the example of my proteomics study, right? So you can see that this is on Alzheimer's disease. Okay, basically it's Nyanyo. Okay, so you can see that there is a very clear problem statement here. The issues are, with biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. So if you read this paper, it will say that, there are issues with development of biomarkers for AD. So what did I say? After that is definitely will not go wrong. Go on to your existing solutions, okay? Your existing solutions are, for example, the current blood biomarkers, okay? Validated AD biomarkers are mainly your CSF, that is the cerebrospinal fluid, or through neuroimaging techniques, okay? So these are the existing solutions. But of course, there are limitations to the existing solutions, right? And you go on to tell them, so what are the existing solutions, okay? So I would say that CSF is going to be invasive, while neuroimaging, you may not have a PET scan in all the clinics around. So these are the limitation of the existing solutions. And then we slowly guide the reader to your hypothesis. Can you see that the story is very beautiful, okay? It's just like storytelling. Now you go on to tell what is your hypothesis. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, your your hypothesis must be backed up by scientific evidence. You cannot just hypothesize something without any evidence, kan? So just go on, write a bit more on what are the evidence, and then look at. Okay, so in this paper we found that there was another review, okay, written in 2014. So, so we wanted to introduce blood-based biomarker because it's easy, kan? Instead of your CSF, so we thought our hypothesis is to introduce blood-based biomarkers. But of course, there are many other studies also have introduced blood-based biomarkers. In fact, there's a review in 2014 on blood-based biomarkers, a review. Okay, so now acknowledge the gap from the previous study. Look at what is it that they didn't look at, and why do you think you have to write this review? So if you look here, I would clearly say, we would clearly say the authors, however, did not report the regulation. And I went on a few other things that, what was the limitation of that previous review? Can you see? So that will slowly lead you to your objectives, okay? Okay, got another 10 minutes. Okay, so going back, so now you have got your title, you've got your abstract, you've got your introduction here, right? Now, going back to your framework. Now, remember that I talked about framework first, outline basically, it's outline of your, before you even start, once you've done your search, ensure that you have the outline ready, okay, before you write the introduction. The outline is very important because you want to ensure that you are in the right direction. Now, for the introduction, I told you, for the main sections, I told you, go from the broad section down to your research question, okay? So you have to be smart when you're doing your main section 1, then you really have to be a bit broad. And in each section, ensure that you discuss, evaluate, summarize, synthesize, tabulate. This is where everything comes in, okay? So all these areas, you have to actually discuss. You put in your, what did you get, from that table? Because I told you already, for each main section, do tables. You have to extract your data. So what does it speak to you? That is when you discuss and you sort of synthesize, analyze. So this is where it happens. But usually analysis is towards your last part. So I'll just show you one. Okay, this is going back to this paper. So you can see this is our outline. Ni kan yang tadi saya dah betulkan. So introduction, conclusion. So you can see that these are my main sections, and you can see that these are all tables. These tables, if you extracted information into your Excel spreadsheet tadi, you've got tables kan? So you can actually convert these tables into your manuscript. So I just want to highlight this. Please take note of like this section which has table 1, this section which has table 2, this section which has table 3, table 4. Can you see that this, if you did extract the information from your Excel, it will be so easy for you already. So this is the synthesis part. So you've got your table 1, table 2. Now friends, here, right, you really have to think a bit. Okay, like what do like I told you, you can use Pico or your main classification, but sometimes you have to go a bit further. Okay, so this is when you can discuss with the team, is this the information that we need? So basically, synthesis can be obtained from your Excel if the information is well extracted. Okay, now we're getting into the exciting part of analysis. Now, can you imagine, so this student, okay, she did a great job because she has actually analyzed what are the main biomarkers, from the various studies. Okay, if you look at blood and urine. So what is exciting, I didn't put, okay, the whole thing. I just want to show you, like, this is a cohort from China, you've got various countries. So she has put in what are the, of course we've got a cutoff point. So what did these authors get? These authors found that these are the small molecules that were found to be upregulated. Some are downregulated, some are upregulated. So what this student did is, now we have synthesized all this information, okay, from all the previous studies. We are going to analyze. Okay, sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot in a narrative review, but most of the time you can. So I told her that why don't you actually run a pathway analysis, putting all these small molecules that you got from these various studies, instead of doing your own research, you are actually getting their data. This is basically just upregulation, downregulation by how many times and things like that. So she could construct, do a bit of analysis and come up with like, what are the main pathways that are involved in Alzheimer's disease? So can you see the synthesis and this analysis? Now, not often can you do this analysis, but even if, example, okay, she just stopped there, she stopped here. you can still see some pattern. And from that pattern, you can still conclude, okay, if you can't, okay. For students, I understand that sometimes, you can't, but you can discuss with your supervisors. But if you can't, you can still analyze or get some information from here, okay. I don't want to scare you. Now, okay, this is another paper that we published. You see, when this needs a bit of thinking. And I always tell my students at this point, bila dia nak buat analysis, okay, or synthesis, I always give them time, because you have to, like I told you, you have to be happy, okay? If you're pushing, pressurizing yourself, trust me, you cannot, it's difficult. This one, you have to be creative. You need a bit of creativity. So if you look at these arrows, what does it tell you? One look at it, you can tell you that all these parameters are upregulated, all these parameters are downregulated. There's no difference in these two. So just by looking at it, you can actually, it sort of speaks to you, okay? The figure speaks to you. And my point is, these are things that you may want to discuss with your supervisor, and you need a bit of creativity here, okay? You have to have a joyful heart to do all these things. So this is another beautiful diagram, I would say. Is my time up? Okay. So this is another beautiful diagram which clearly indicates, which cohort is upregulated, which proteins are downregulated. So, and the other part, like I told you, the analysis part. If I always encourage, okay, sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. So I always encourage my students to come up with a figure, to a pathway, like how actually, how do you think, you got all these parameters, right? So how does it actually get into the main picture of the disease itself? Okay, so how does this blood, relate peripheral, what's the relationship or correlation between peripheral blood and the brain? Can you see? And of course, to do this, from all the reading, for example, 80 articles that you have read, you would have got some ideas. So eventually, you can get to that place. Okay, but usually this is done by postgraduate students. So yeah, I mean. And the other thing that I put here is appearance counts. For students, when you do it properly, okay? And sometimes I feel that if it's not very important data, right, you can put it as your supplementary material. So I'm going to, so for the conclusion, now ensure that you are going to say something new. Now what's new? What is your findings? What does it speak to you? And don't just say, what we see very often is that in the conclusion is that I've done this mistake. I will just say future studies should be conducted. Very standard, kan? So, but actually what is very important in conclusion and future perspective is you give your actual ideas of what kind of future experiments needs to be conducted. Okay, a bit more. Don't just say future studies should be conducted. Okay, so just go on a bit with the future perspective. Now, once you've done the whole outline is there, okay, your whole first draft is there. Please, okay, if you're a student, read it, okay, read it. And I know it can be annoying, but I think it's important that we read our paper. And now, I've got this email where we have got resident reviewers at INSA, right? So they can actually help, but ensure that we have gone through the first draft. So, these are the benefits that please you may want to look at. Now, I'll go very quickly because I know my time is up soon. Now, imagine, now if you're solicited to write the review articles, it's right. But how if you're not solicited, that means you're not invited to write the review articles, how are you going to tell the editor, can you please consider my publication? I mean, personally, I would say to save time, write to the editor. Okay, so what are the information that you must have in your letter to the editor? Imagine that you got your outline. So what you need is authors and affiliations. You must put, because they want to see whether you are experts in the field. So all the authors and all their affiliations, summary of the scientific content, which means that you need to give them the outline. Remember, I told you the main outline tadi. No need to submit the whole paper, just the main outline there. Okay, and then how different is this study compared to the previous review in the field? So I hope I got that. I know I went through fast, but this is important. Okay, write to the editor and include your author's affiliations, summary of the scientific content. What I mean here is your main outline. Tadi kan I said the main themes, so your main sections, subsections. That is important because that is your main content. So no need to give the whole paper. It's just the outline. And how different is your review compared to the last review? Okay, now this is, I thought that if I got time, I would share. Now I got 5 minutes more, can I? So now where to submit the review articles, okay? So I would say that, you know, you can look at your previous journals, okay? This will help you sort of narrow down. But if you really don't have any idea, okay, look at journal finder tools. I'm going through quite fast. Now, these are very useful, okay? So what you have to do is just type journal finder tools, okay? And you have got various, Xavier has, I've not used Jane before, but I've used Springer and Edance. Edance is from China. So what you really have to do in this is just key in your title, key in your abstract, and it will give you a sort of a list of articles that, a list of journals that you can send to, okay? So there are various, and it's all listed there. You can look up, you can try. And oh yeah, what is important is decide on one journal, okay? Do not submit to multiple journals. Ethically, it's not right. And I just want to share with you this one, that sometimes there are special, this journal is special because it really focuses only on review, okay? And you know, that is social science and education. This is on AJ, this is on medical, and the other journals are your normal journals, where you have a mix of everything, your original research article and your reviews. Okay, so very quickly, 4 more minutes. Now, how to get your articles published, okay? When you send your articles, it's something like this, okay? The reviewers are waiting to whack you. Submission is not a black hole. Basically, when you submit, it's if you meet all the basic requirements, it will be sent to a reviewer. But sometimes, yeah, it may be rejected even after a few days now. But to me, I look at it positively because sometimes the journals are overloaded with many articles. But at least the good thing is they tell you off. You know, they don't waste your time. They tell you that, hey, I think it's not suitable. Okay, they'll put it in a very good way. But it's good. To me, I look at it positively. At least you don't waste my time. I'll send it to another journal. Now, if it's assigned to a reviewer, basically the reviewer will have a few weeks to look at it and get back to you. So your editor now will make a decision either to reject or accept. But very often, you know, they will ask you, the editor will ask you to revise the paper. My point here is I want to tell you that when you are asked to revise a paper, please do it to the best of your ability, because this is your chance, kan? Kita dapat chance. So sometimes we even have references to support our rebuttal. Okay, do it to the best of your ability. Last part would be publication ethics. Okay, throughout you have to be ethical, right? Now, very quickly, I thought that this was inspiring. I read this news yesterday, afternoon, and usually I'm not into business or finance, but I saw this title, Nothing Can Stop America. I was like, wow, okay, let me read. And I read about this Mr. Warren Buffett, and you know, I was just wondering how come this 89-year-old man could actually is so optimistic. Can you imagine? He just lost. I read a bit more. I googled about him. He lost 50 billion USD in the first quarter of the year, and yet he is so optimistic. At 89 years old, he can still say, you know, it's a long haul for us. But he can say nothing can stop America economically. Yeah, I'm not into politics. So really, that inspired me. I read a bit about him, and for us, nothing can stop us too. Okay, it is inspiring. And here, you know that they have not given up. They are still fighting. So must we. Okay, and thank you and all the best, everyone. I hope this has been useful. And back to you, Tamizi.
Okey, baik. Demikianlah tadi perkongsian daripada Profesor Dr. Kalavathy Ramasamy. Prof, boleh kita buka soalan?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good.
Alright, okay. So, kepada peserta yang ada soalan, boleh onkan mic, ikut giliran kita benarkan untuk tanya soalan. Sementara itu, para peserta diminta untuk mengisi kehadiran di pautan yang telah diserahkan oleh Puan Ikmazura Othman di ruangan komen. Dipersilakan. Kita buka soalan kepada peserta.
Hi, Prof Kala.
Hello, hi.
Roslina here. I have one question. When you said to screen all the papers, like from thousands of papers, and then an example, or you screen it up to 75.
Okay.
will be a good number to reduce the papers?
It's Dr. Roslina, is it? Dr. Roslina, actually, to be honest with you, when we do the screening, right, you don't want to lose any important papers. So you have to go through that 1,000 plus. I know it's a bit painful, but usually a student can do within 1 month because it's just screening. Nampak macam banyak kan, macam I mean it's like 1,000 plus. But actually you nampak title, some you can just push out already. So it's not overwhelming actually. Nampak macam 1,000 something a lot. Sebenarnya when you look at all the papers and now you have EndNote, you have everything. And it's all duplicating actually, Dr. Roslina. There's a lot of duplication because you're looking at different databases kan. So banyak yang akan duplicate. So the ones that duplicate, you cancel lah from that database. So that is already easy. Now, so I wouldn't say don't how do I say it? You have to include important papers. So remove only if it's not in your area. But this is not difficult. A lot of times we think it's difficult, but a lot of them are duplicating. Okay, so you can actually look at the title and a lot of times title you dah nampak, this is not your field, terus dibuang. So if you think that title ada lah, there's a bit of correlation, go on and read the abstract. I really don't have time, Dr. Roslina, that's why I didn't go on very depth into that, but I wish I could show you, it's in a different file, where actually a lot of times there's duplication. All the databases, because you are searching from various databases, 400 katakan from Embase, another 300 from NCBI PubMed. So actually a lot of times you are going to duplicate. So duplicate aja, it will be already reduced. So I don't think it's not overwhelming lah. So, but what is important is important papers must be in. Okay, we may not be able to have everything, but if you katakan, now your review, the last review was on 2018, it was in 2018. So maybe you can do a review from 2018 to 2020 if there are a lot of articles. So this one you can adjust it. But jangan sampai too few papers lah. Are you okay, Dr. Roslina?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the problem. Like I just want to know what is too little papers.
Oh, okay, I got it. So you see, now I would say that for a narrative review, it's different with. Are you talking about a systematic or a narrative? Narrative, huh?
It doesn't matter.
So narrative review, nice number, okay, would be 100 to 120. But I wouldn't say that these are nice numbers because certain journals specifically say they only want 50 or 60 references. Okay, sometimes you have to cut because it depends. So then now your job is to ensure that you really have that 50 and 60. What are the most important ones in that area? But for a systematic review, you got no choice. You must take those articles because there are not many. There won't be so many in systematic review. But for a narrative, I would say personally, a nice number would be 75 to 100. But some journals have asked us, like the one we sent to Movement Disorders, asked us to reduce. So now that is difficult. So you want to reduce, you have to remove only the ones that are not so important, okay, the ones that are backing you up, but there are certain articles that is very important you have to follow.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome and all the best.
Okey, kita buka soalan seterusnya.
Hi, Prof Kala.
Hello, hi.
I just want to ask one simple question. So let's say we already identify a recent paper of a review paper. Let's say the review was done on 2015. So should we include any papers less than 2015, or we just include the papers after that for the.
Thank you, Dr. Nofitra. Basically, okay, now you've got a review article in 2015. Okay, my way of doing it would be, I would think that look at your research question. Are you going to address new things that the previous research did not address? That means that your review in 2015, katakan, kan, dia tak address the questions that you are doing. That means that your review is new, but so you can include previous ones because you are doing something new. Like for our study, the previous study that was 2014 too, they did it differently. They didn't answer like on the regulation up ke down ke, they just go very general. So I have to go back to the previous work. But if your studies are like quite similar to 2015, but now you want to see the trend from 2015 to 2020, is there a difference? Then you don't have to really focus on yang sebelum. Can you see Dr. Nurfitra?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Prof Kala, kita ada satu soalan daripada Dr. Amirul Afif daripada Faculty Business and Management. So soalannya, Prof, what are the common reasons of rejection for review article?
Okay, Dr. Amirul, that's a very difficult question. Why are they rejected? Like I told you, it really depends. I mean, I also get rejection. We all get rejection from submission of papers, yeah, but we just have to take it positively. So I think that now it's very competitive, kan, to publish in journals. So what is important is there must be something that is lacking. So once you are rejected, okay, if a paper is rejected, look very often, if it has been sent for review, then they will give you that whole list of what is the problem with that review. Okay, usually they will give you if it's sent out lah. So if I were you, I will address those problems and resubmit to another journal. So that's what I do. I mean, I didn't have time today to share that part of it, but it happens, and I would say that improve. Don't just repackage. Don't just send as it is, but repackage a bit and send it to another journal. But I would say that please address whatever the limitations were. Are you okay, Dr. Amirul? Oh, okay. It was a question by Red. Okay, Tamizi, I think I'm done with that question. Anything else?
Okay, kita buka soalan terakhir untuk Prof Kala. Ada sesiapa lagi nak tanyakan soalan? Okay, Prof, nampaknya ada satu soalan dari Gita.
Yeah, hi Prof Kala.
Hi, Dr. Gita.
Yeah, that was a very insightful sharing. Thank you so much. I just have one question. The line is very thin between SLR and conceptual paper. Is that so? Because sometimes conceptual paper, you have to come out with a framework.
Yeah.
So for social science, sometimes we write a conceptual paper and then we come up with a framework.
Okay.
So how much difference is it with narrative or SLR?
I think the conceptual paper is something that, to be honest with you, I have not done. Okay, I don't want to guide you wrongly. It's something that I have not done before. But if you can share with me a bit on what do they look at conceptual paper, then I would be able to address your...
It is also quite similar. We do the literature review part and we follow the same main section.
But do they have a methodology?
Yes.
They have a methodology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that that's really not a narrative review. When you talk about something, the nice part about a narrative review is that there's no systematic flow of the method. Okay. So that is something that is good, because in narrative review, it's quite flexible. Like if it's a conceptual paper that you say there is methodology, then I find it personally, right, if you have your methodology that you have to follow like a systematic review, then it's quite, you have to do it. You know, like for us it's Prisma, we have got that, I would say that text to do it. So it's more flexible. Narrative review, it has that flexibility. But what I tried to do this afternoon is I picked up some of the good practices from systematic, so that we are more, especially with keywords, okay? We really have to identify them.
Yeah. But actually you're quite right. We don't really have a methodology. We are proposing to do research with a methodology. So it is quite similar to what you spoke. It is professional science paper, a conceptual paper. It also you do the whole literature search, and then you
are proposing a concept.
Yes.
So basically, that's something like, okay, like for us, we actually use our systematic review or our narrative review to validate the studies in the future in other clinical trials. I think it's something like that. So your question was?
Is it how similar, how different is it? I suppose the line is very thin, but in a conceptual paper at the end, we try to propose a framework to do a research. We are proposing.
Okay, so what is your question?
So no, I'm just saying that it is slightly different, but your sharing just now has actually thrown a lot of light.
No, but your point, Dr. Gita, it's good, because if you really say that the idea, because basically what we want is from all these previous studies that people have done, you want to beautifully actually sort of ensure that it's all together, and eventually you come up with evidence-based, based on previous studies. You still got somewhere to go to say that based on this, now I'm coming up with my framework. So I think that's why I said if your research question and your keywords are right, I think your framework for your conceptual paper will be good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof Kalavathy. Thank you.
Prof Kala, kita ada satu lagi soalan daripada Dr. Maimunah Mustaqim.
Okay.
So soalannya, Prof Kala, can we use information other than journal articles as sources of references such as information from official website of MOH, etc.?
Hi, Dr. Maimunah. Yes, you can use, because this is a narrative review, kan? So you can use references. It's just like your original article, research article. Okay? So sometimes when there's really no information elsewhere, you want to support your data, you can. You can use, online, whatever. It's something like your original article when you talk about references. For a narrative review, it's very flexible. Kali ini, saya rasa saya sudah menjawab soalan tersebut.
Okey, baik. Kita ada soalan lagi?
Okay, Prof, my one question regarding what is the quality of this narrative review?
Again, what is the quality?
Yeah, the quality we can publish, yes, regarding the quality especially. In a high impact factor in a quality journal, how we can publish, what will be the level?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Reza. So now, actually, if you look at narrative reviews, there are narrative reviews that are published in Nature, Science, right? So I believe that the quality depends on the expertise as well. Okay, so I'm of course a systematic review. Your research question is very specific. So like I said earlier, the function of a narrative review is very different from the role of a systematic review. Now, a systematic review will answer a very specific research question, while a narrative review, you've got articles that are written in Nature and Science, okay, which has a very high quality. So I wouldn't say that, of course, if you're talking about specific questions, a systematic review is good, okay, because we have done both. So my point is, I would say that it depends on your research question. But if you want to go something a bit broader, right, after all these years and you want to go something broad, I believe that if you do it properly, a narrative review can also, you can get beautiful narrative reviews in, like I said, the Nature side. So it really depends what is your research question. So and what is the role of that review? That is something that you have to be clear. Because sometimes you cannot answer the question with a narrative review. You have to do a systematic review. So that's the reason we have done 3 systematic reviews thus far. And it really has got its own reason. I like systematic review meta-analysis because I actually am able to analyze people's data and I will be able to get new information. So that's the benefit of systematic review. But a narrative review, it's more of the importance of a general idea of the whole The functions are different.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dr. Riza. Kamizi? Hi Kamizi, where are you?
Ada lagi soalan daripada peserta?
Okay.
Ada soalan?
Apakah soalannya untuk Kamizi?
Saya masih lagi menanti soalannya, Prof.
Oh, okay, saya.
Baiklah, untuk pengetahuan Prof Kala dan juga para peserta, sesi pada petang ni kita hanya ada 250 orang yang berjaya masuk ke link ni. Tetapi yang WhatsApp pihak urus setia ramai untuk masuk, tetapi tidak lepaslah. Jadi mungkin kita boleh cadangkan untuk adakan lagi sesi bersama Prof Kala di lain hari.
Boleh je, just contact me because I'm happy to help with you. Yeah.
Alright, thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah.
Baiklah, nampaknya dah tiada soalan daripada peserta.
Okay.
Demikianlah tadi perkongsian daripada Profesor Dr. Kalavathy Ramasamy daripada Fakulti Farmasi UiTM.
Hello, Prof. Sorry. Hello, Prof.
Okay, I have question. Yes, I have question. Is it all journal receive or our narrative review?
Yeah. So it's like this. Now there are certain journals that are very specific for only review articles. Okay, like I told you just now, the aging research or the education, where they really take review articles only. Okay. So if you're talking about review articles, you boleh masuk situ. But generally, all journals, all journals will have a small section for review. But maybe they take two lah, they won't take so many. Okay? Sorry, yes, I didn't have enough time to go through one by one because 1 hour you can just give a broad idea. Kamizi, can I just make can I have a word? I just would like to thank the Research and Innovation Division of UCS once again for the presentation. And thank you to all the participants today. Thank you for being with me.
Baik, mewakili bahagian penyelidikan inovasi UiTM Cabang Selangor, kami ingin merakamkan sekali lagi ucapan terima kasih kepada Profesor Dr. Kalavathy Ramasamy dan semua peserta yang turut serta di dalam sesi perkongsian kita pada petang ini. InsyaAllah kita akan adakan lagi sesi yang sama di lain hari. Kita akan buat bahan kemudian. Sekali lagi terima kasih, Prof.
You're welcome. Welcome, Kamizi.
Baiklah.